In August of 1985, something unexpected happened at the Phoenix Art Museum in Arizona. A valuable painting by the famous abstract expressionist artist Willem de Kooning disappeared from the museum's wall. The painting was called Woman-Ochre, and it was an important example of de Kooning's bold style, full of twisting shapes and heavy brush strokes. The theft came as a shock to the museum staff, to the art community, and to people who simply loved the painting. What followed was a mystery that lasted more than 30 years and involved surprising suspects, quiet lives, and an unusual ending. The robbery happened the day after Thanksgiving in 1985, a time when the museum was open to the public and many people were out shopping or enjoying time off. Two people walked into the museum that morning. Witnesses later said one of them was a man in his 50s, with a mustache, glasses, and casual clothing. The other was a woman who wore a scarf and sunglasses. They looked like any normal visitors and did not attract attention. At this point, no one suspected a crime was about to occur. The couple moved quietly through the museum's galleries until they reached the room where Woman-Ochre hung. It was displayed on the wall like any other painting, with no special alarms or protective glass. At that time, art museums did not yet use the high-tech security systems that are common today. Security cameras were rare, alarms were limited, and it was easier for someone determined to steal art to attempt something bold. According to reports written later, the man stayed behind near the painting while the woman chatted with a security guard. This distracted the guard long enough for the man to cut the painting out of its frame. He used a sharp blade to slice the canvas cleanly from the stretcher bars. Then he rolled or folded the painting and hid it under his clothes. The couple left the museum quickly, got into a car, and drove away. The entire robbery took only minutes. By the time the museum staff realized what had happened, the thieves were long gone. Police were called immediately, and the empty frame was discovered. It was a heartbreaking sight. The torn edges where the painting used to be were still visible. For people who loved the painting, its absence felt like a deep loss. The Phoenix Police Department and the FBI worked together on the case. There were some descriptions from witnesses, but they were vague. There were no fingerprints left behind and no cameras to review. The thieves had planned their escape well, and they vanished with no clear trail. Investigators looked at the art black market, which is the hidden world where stolen art is secretly sold. Sometimes thieves steal art to sell to wealthy collectors who want a rare piece even if it is illegal. Other times thieves steal art for ransom, demanding money in exchange for returning it. But in this case, no ransom note ever came. No shady buyers stepped forward. Dealers and experts around the country were alert for any sign of the missing painting, but nothing surfaced. Months turned into years. The case stayed open, but tips grew fewer. The museum had to accept that one of its most valuable paintings might never return. For 32 years, Woman-Ochre was simply gone. Many people believed it had been destroyed or hidden so deeply it would never be found. While the world wondered what had happened to Woman-Ochre, the painting was quietly hanging in a private home in a small town in New Mexico. The house belonged to Jerry and Rita Alter, a retired couple who lived in the tiny community of Cliff, near Silver City. To outsiders, they seemed ordinary. Jerry had been a teacher and musician. Rita was a speech pathologist. They traveled a lot but lived a quiet life. No one suspected anything unusual about them. Inside their home, however, the stolen painting hung behind a bedroom door. It was placed so that only someone in the room could see it directly. The edges of the painting showed signs that it had been roughly removed from its frame, which matched what had happened in the museum. The Alters' relatives later said they had always admired the painting but never knew it was stolen. They assumed Jerry and Rita had bought it somewhere during their travels. The couple never spoke about its origins, and they kept it for decades without attracting any suspicion. The painting might have remained hidden forever if not for a series of coincidences. In 2017, Rita Alter died, and Jerry had passed away years earlier. Their nephew, who inherited the estate, started selling items from the house. One of the first places he went was a small antique and furniture shop in Silver City, New Mexico. He brought in several pieces, including the painting. The store owners, Rick Johnson and his wife, thought the painting looked interesting. It had a strange style and seemed like it might be valuable. They hung it in the store and priced it at a few $100s. One day a visitor who knew about art came in and noticed the painting. The visitor suggested it looked a lot like the missing de Kooning painting. Rick did some research online. The more he looked at photos of Woman-Ochre and compared them to the painting on his wall, the more convinced he became that he had something remarkable. He contacted the Phoenix Art Museum to ask if the painting they had lost had ever been found. When the museum learned of the shop owner's discovery, they sent experts to inspect it. Those experts quickly identified it as the original painting. Even though the painting had been cut, rolled, and later restretched in a sloppy way, the brush strokes, colors, and canvas material matched perfectly. After 32 years, Woman-Ochre had been found almost by accident hanging in a small town antique shop. When the story came out, many people wondered whether Jerry and Rita Alter had actually been the thieves from 1985. At first, it seemed unbelievable. They were not known criminals, and they had lived quiet, respectable lives. But as investigators looked into the matter, more details emerged. The car used in the robbery had been described as maroon or reddish. Photos from the 1980s showed that the Alters owned a red sports car. Witness descriptions of the thieves' appearances also resembled the couple. A photograph taken of them around the same time showed Jerry with glasses and a mustache just like the description given in 1985. There were other clues too. The Alters traveled frequently, including trips to Arizona. One of Rita's relatives said the couple had been in Arizona around Thanksgiving in 1985, though he was not certain. Even more strangely, Jerry Alter had written a collection of short stories in which fictional characters committed clever crimes. One story described a couple stealing a valuable jewel from a museum and escaping without being caught. To many people, these coincidences felt suspicious. Yet the FBI never officially declared the couple guilty. There was no concrete proof, only clues, hints, and similarities. By the time the painting was found, both Jerry and Rita were dead, so they could not be questioned. Ultimately, the FBI decided to close the case. Without a confession or solid evidence, they could not say with certainty that the Alters had stolen the painting. But many investigators and journalists believe that the couple did it and kept the painting as a private trophy for the rest of their lives. When Woman-Ochre returned to the Phoenix Art Museum, it was in poor condition. The rough cutting, folding, and amateur repair had damaged the canvas. The painting needed professional restoration before it could ever be shown again. The museum sent the painting to the Getty Conservation Institute in Los Angeles, where experts spent years repairing it. They flattened the creases, repaired tears, and carefully restored the paint. It took a long time because the artwork was delicate and the damage was severe, but the restorers were successful, and eventually the painting was brought back to near-perfect condition. In 2022, the Phoenix Art Museum exhibited the restored painting. People from around the country came to see it, not only because it was a masterpiece of art, but also because it had survived one of the most fascinating art theft stories in American history. Today, the painting stands as both a beautiful work of art and a symbol of how truth can stay hidden for decades. It reminds people that even the most ordinary lives may conceal surprising stories, and that lost things sometimes find their way back home. The story of the de Kooning painting is compelling for many reasons. First, the robbery itself was dramatic and unexpected. It happened in broad daylight, quickly and boldly, without violence but with precise planning. Viewers imagine how the thieves must have worked, how they distracted the guard, and how they escaped. Second, the long disappearance created a mystery that stretched over decades. People were fascinated by how a famous painting could simply vanish for 32 years with no trace. The mystery deepened when the painting reappeared in such an ordinary place. Third, the possibility that the thieves were a quiet, elderly couple added a strange twist. Instead of dangerous criminals, the suspects were a pair of schoolteachers who lived in a modest house in a rural town. This contrast made the story feel almost like a movie or a novel. It raised questions about how well we truly know other people and what hidden sides their lives might include. Finally, the recovery and restoration of the painting brought hope and excitement. For art lovers, seeing the painting rescued and repaired felt like a victory. For museums, it highlighted the importance of security, documentation, and care. Today, Woman-Ochre is safely back in the Phoenix Art Museum. It is restored, protected, and admired by thousands of visitors. The story of the theft and recovery has become part of its history, adding a new layer to its meaning. The painting is not only an important piece of modern art, but also an example of how cultural treasures can survive even when lost. The case is officially closed. The FBI did not prove who stole the painting, but many people accept the idea that Jerry and Rita Alter were likely responsible. Whether or not they truly committed the theft may never be known. What is clear is that the painting's journey, its disappearance, its secret life in New Mexico, and its eventual return has made it one of the most famous stolen artworks in American history.